All right, Clint from the doorway too, hanging out with Clement. Clement, what do you like to be called?
You can just go for Clem.
You,
Yeah, it's easier.
yeah, awesome. Cool. So, it's Clem from, and is it Subterranean? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's I pronounce it Subterranean.
Subterranean. Perfect.
Um, yeah, it's I know it seems like a misspelling because it would be Subterranean, right?
Yep.
It's a little nod to the band Moss that
Yeah.
has a song called Subterranean. So
Perfect. That's yeah. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. So, um, but great. So the first question I'm going to have is, so the record to me is probably the best mix of like sludgy doom that I've heard in quite some time. I don't really hear the
thanks,
black,
man.
yeah, I don't really hear the black metal elements as much as some people have been kind of talking about, but
Mm-hmm.
it kind of reminds me of, and these are the three bands that come to mind. And I'm older, so these are older bands for me that I love as when I was growing up. So it reminds me a lot of Grief, a band out of Boston. Reminds me
Mm-hmm.
a lot of a band called Cavity out of Miami. And then, of course, the nod to the older Neurosis and stuff like that is where I really kind of hear it. Were these influences towards the band? Like, what bands kind of made you want to do this kind of sound?
Yes and no. I mean, Grief's awesome. I was super stoked when they came back with Come to Grief.
Yeah,
And yeah, older Neurosis, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think it's has like such influence on so many bands that then it kind of like like trickled down to eventually everybody's kind of influenced by older Neurosis or Neurosis in general in the scene. For me, it's a lot of what we call like Pacific Northwest doom.
okay.
So you're gonna have like all your Bellwitch, Asnia, Yob, Hell, all that stuff, Mismore, and then like I've been doing that for I'd say like 15 years, being into like various extreme metal bands, hardcore bands, all that stuff. So I think all those little things kind of like you pick up some stuff along the way. So maybe like my vocals are somewhat black metal influenced, and I like to put like blast beats here and there. So
Yeah. Okay. No, that completely makes sense. I can hear the black metal in the vocals the more that you say it. So yeah, you're probably right in that direction. Um, but so I kind of wanted to ask, since this is the first record you guys have done as this project, um, how was the whole writing experience for this? I mean, they always say you have forever to write your first record and then 6 months to write your second record. So, um, did you have these songs already in mind for this album, or did you write it in a studio? I know you've been around for a few years, but I don't know what the creative process is. Do you prefer to take some time and write songs, or do you like to get together and just kind of at the moment make the songs happen?
I mean yeah, it's a good question because it ties with the creation of the band, the inception of the band. I was in a previous band, so I to explain real quick, I lived in Paris when I was younger, and then I moved to the U.S. for 6 years. And I came back here with a bunch of stuff that influenced me, mostly living in Portland for those 3 years, where I got to discover this scene that's very very unique to the Pacific Northwest. Then coming back here was kind of missing it, and then so I started like a more like stonery doom band, kind of like Electric Wizardish.
Mhm.
And that wasn't really going anywhere. I was kind of feeling like I was just, fighting an uphill battle constantly to get the guys to practice, try to find shows, write music, and all that. So there was like a lot of frustration that was like building up. And so I started like writing those riffs that were kind of a little bit like meaner, so to speak, than what you'd use in like a Electric Wizard type band. And so I was just like keeping them for myself, thinking like I'll use that in something else. And then I was just checking like ads on the side, and that's when I saw that there was this drummer that was looking for to start something that had like he mentioned I Got influence, which is funny because I don't think we sound that much like I Got, but I think you mentioned I Got in your review. And so like I brought those riffs and we started kind of writing together. So the way it happens is that I bring all the like basic material and then we kind of like make it happen and rehearsal. Blood for the Blood Gods was written super fast. We only had one track and we were supposed to play a show not even like a month later. So like, I should just write this like real quick. And it's cool because I think the album is like a feeling of urgency. Like it was written as like, it just came out. It was very natural. And even the recording process we did this over basically 2 days. It was like a weekend. Then we did some overdubs after that, but so everything happened very like organically and real fast. And the new tracks are obviously it's going to be very different. They were right at due to the pandemic. So we'll see how it turns out.
Cool. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about was this record is definitely for a certain audience, being that it's 4 tracks and most of the tracks are 10 plus minutes long. What kind of crowd have you been seeing like this? Has it been more the Doom Death guys? Has it been more the sludgy kind of Doom fans? Because they're very different, especially you being in the US for a while, you know what I'm talking about. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they don't merge together well at all. And for the odd thing of saying is you put those 2 elements in a very impressive way. Like it's almost like if you did Neurosis and did Primitive Man at the same time and like kind of threw those 2 sounds together, that's kind of what I'm getting. And those are very different audiences. So what kind of like what have you seen so far, the feedback from like the underground so far? Is it more that sludgy kind of side, or is it more that like really epic Doom Death kind of fan?
A lot of like sludgy, Primitive Man for sure. It's something that we've heard a lot.
Yeah.
Um, we have been very selective about our shows because we don't want to play too often, and we didn't want to play too often, especially before the album came out. So it was really it's weird, man, because we never really played with sludge bands. Like we've played like a death metal grindcore
Sure.
fest. We've played with a black metal band, friend of ours. We were lucky enough to open for Napalm Death, so that was like complete like people think of Napalm Death as like this like super fast paced short songs, and we're doing like slow long songs, and so some of our friends were like, "How the fuck did you end up on that bill?" But it made sense, and we had some really good feedback. So far, it seems like mixed crowd are always good feedback. Nobody
Good.
has ever come to us to be like, "I thought your music was too slow or too shitty." If
Yeah.
anything, like one person was, I think you should speak more to the crowd. It's like, no, that's not really what we do.
No, that's cool. So for a doom band, I wouldn't say you're very slow. There's a lot of mid-tempo
Mm-hmm.
elements in your music, so I think that's maybe why grindcore fans or more death metal fans can kind of vibe with it, simply because there is a lot of death metal elements or more mid-tempo elements in your music. I kind of wanted to ask about the subject matter, because it seems like some of the subject matter is a little intense. So I kind of wanted to ask you, did you all along have that kind of stance or those ideas, or did this kind of as a group effort come together and have a thought process?
I mean, that's part of, I was saying that there was like a lot of frustration at the previous band, and Subterraen is this really weird project in the sense that of all the bands I've been in, it's really the one that feels the more visceral in a way. It's a lot of anger and frustration. Like I just even the name of the band, so it's a wink to Moss, but it's also my feeling, my general feeling of like we've been fucking up this place so much, like thinking like there's gonna be like nobody after us, and it's just feel like kind of almost this like earthquake coming, and I think that has ties in with the idea of doom, how it's a genre that's supposed to be like ominous and threatening and all this and I try. So the lyrics are a little. I don't think they're that violent, to be honest, but it's just like
Yeah,
I try to express
I
how I
wouldn't say
feel.
violent in any way. I'd say they're just more very forceful and aggressive.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to like bash people over the head with like we gotta do something for the planet, but just be like look at what we've done and you know where this has taken us, and I also need this for me as a vocalist. Like I need to have like stuff I believe in that so I can like you know be sincere when I sing, be it in studio or in a live setting. So and those are there's just so much to say. Like I try to shift the lyrical themes at some point to do something that was I don't know maybe like more positive or take a step away from that, and I just naturally come back to it because I think that it just ties in with the band and I don't know. It's like I feel that I really need this platform for myself, and just again, like I'm not judging anybody. Like I could be a better person. I could do more in effort in my day to day life. I try to be as good as I can regarding this whole thing. About leaving a nice, good place for whoever is going to come after us. And I think that's the idea. It's just like let's just wake up.
Yeah, no, I got you. Awesome. Uh, so I'm gonna kind of turn the questions a little bit to something else now because I'm kind of interested. So I got your record and the Jupiterian record from Transcending Obscurity at the same time, and there's a lot of similar vibes on that record. And I'm just wondering if you feel like I do that maybe this is like a second coming, a rebirth of like doom because what I mean by real doom, like not the stoner dooms, not the retro doom bands, but like the old Peaceville, the avant-garde days, like when it was doom death and it was scary and it was heavy and it was dark and it was aggressive. Do you feel like there's a lot of these bands, like even Primitive Man kind of can go into this mix? Like there's a lot of these bands starting to come. Do you think it's just because of the times we're having, or do you think it's the way we grew up? I'm just kind of curious because there's a lot of really cool doom happening right now.
I think it's. I think you're right, and it's like a mixture of things. Like for the past few years, you had a lot of, what we call in a affectionate way, Scooby Doom. The whole like witchy kind of like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like the whole external stuff, but yeah, I think that the times we live in and Jupiterian has been like super important for us. Like I discovered Transcending Obscurity through Jupiterian, and it was a major influence when I was writing the record. It was Terraforming that just came out, and I was listening to it constantly. I love the new album. I think they're awesome. They're definitely like spearheading this whole thing.
Yeah.
They're a major band. And talking with Tiago, it's like we have very similar like our tastes are very similar. Like we started to listen to like kind of like the same thing around the same time, and we can relate a lot. So yeah, it's like yeah, it's happening, and I don't know if it's like a generational thing because you have like people of all ages, but I think it's good. I think that there's a lot of people that are getting more quote unquote open minded. So you're gonna have people coming from death metal bands, from grindcore bands, from black metal bands that are gonna start getting into that. So you have all those little influences that are kind of like being added to the genre, and that's pretty awesome. Like it kind of like gives birth to something new. It reminds me of you did the review of the Elsa album,
Yeah.
which is, oh man, what about that fucking album, right?
Yeah.
You need to have them on your you need to interview one of the guys of Elsa. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, I'm already working on it, so you're
Cool.
you're in the right place.
But you were mentioning the bluesy influence, and that's true. Like when you start listening to it, like, all right, there's something there, um, and that's what creates like new cool music. And to go back to what I mentioned like the Pacific Northwest Doom. It's like you have this basis of Doom, but then like all those little elements that come and make this very unique genre to this scene.
Cool. No, awesome. So I guess on that, I'm gonna ask, like, so you kind of said that you got inspired from Jupiterian and like Transcending Obscurity, but how does a band from France hook up with Kunal from India? Now, like, I talk to the dude a lot myself, and he's a really cool dude, but how the hell did like you're two worlds apart? Like, how did that even begin to happen?
It was completely random. I'm a pretty stubborn person and have things set in a certain way. So I had like maybe 5 labels in mind that I wanted to get in touch with, and nobody answered when I got in touch with them. So I was like, all right, we're starting to think of like self-releasing it. And so I had discovered Transcending Obscurity like maybe like a year before that with Jupiterian with Terraforming, and then you start like digging into their catalog, and you see that they released like the Guerrero album, Crawl was awesome. They released Heads for the Dead, like all that stuff. And like, fuck that label. And I ordered quite a few things from the label, and like even the box sets, everything was like top notch quality. And I was thinking like, okay, like maybe one day we'll get in touch with them. But right now, like your first album, if I get in touch with them, they're gonna be like, how about you get lost? But one day, I think it was like, the Facebook algorithm. There's like people you may know, and there was Kunal that was in this list, and I saw that he was the head of Transcending Obscurity record, and in a very honest way, I sent him a message like, "Hey man, like, I just wanted to tell you, like, thank you for releasing Jupiter and Terraforming, because it's been really like a super important record for me, and it's really influenced on my project. So, it really was just like a thank you. I had no intention of like being like, hey, do you want to sign my band? And so I sent him like one track to like, if you want to listen to it. And he came back to me and thanking me, and he seemed to like the track. I was like, hey, if you have like anything else at some point, like don't hesitate to let me know. And I was at work, and I'm getting like those messages on Facebook, and I'm like, man, should I send him the album or what? Like. And then I was just like, fuck it. Like, if I don't try it, I'm just going to be like, it's going to keep spinning in my head, and I'm just going to be like, just latch onto that. And I sent him the whole album, and like, after maybe an hour, I got a message, and I was like, hey, do you want to release it on Transcending Obscurity Records? No fucking way.
Nice. That's
And
cool.
that's how it happened. So it was completely out of luck, and I'm super thankful to the platform that they gave us. I mean, Transcending Obscurity is definitely, it's been gaining momentum, and the past year was not easy for any smaller or bigger label. And we've been super happy with the release. They've done a great PR job. We can't wait to keep on going and see where it takes us.
Nice. Yeah, he has a love for bands that I've known him for about 5 years now, and he's got a love for bands that are just I don't know, it's second to none, and he treats his band so well. I actually met him through an artist named Michael Riddick. and he literally was like, he's like, you got to talk to this guy. You and him will have a lot in common, and we literally did. And I've been a friend and a fan for for a long time now, so that's very cool. And they do really great packaging on everything they do, and
Yeah.
I'm really happy that he's starting to do vinyl now, because I was talking to him for years about that. Like, you really need to press vinyl. Like, the stuff that you do is such a vinyl format kind of stuff. And he's like, I'm broke. I can't do that kind of stuff. I'm a small little guy in India. And I'm like, no, 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 try it. And he was like, yeah. So I'm really glad that like you're on this label, because you fit very well with them. And I love to watch him really support the bands he has. So like, congratulations on that, man. Very, very,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's surprising because it could have totally been like, hey, come back when you have like a little, when you're a little bit bigger or what, because they did get to that point where they can release bigger stuff. I mean, they have like Roger Johansson that's releasing a bunch of stuff on the label and all that. Like they can have like bigger bands for sure.
Cool. Yeah.
And so like as a smaller band, I think it's awesome that they're giving us a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of wanted to ask, like, so you say you don't play a lot live, but when you do play live, how does the songs differ? Is it is it a different interpretation? Do you try and stay very similar to the recordings? Do you try and have a different kind of atmosphere live versus the record? Like, what differentiates a live show versus the record?
Well, I'd say the main thing that differences a live show and the record is the live shows are quite loud. You can control the volume with the record. It's a little different with the live shows. But the songs have actually evolved. Sometimes, depending on how much time we have to like, cut parts of them, especially if we want to, play a 18-minute song. Yeah. So we started as it was just me and the drummer, and that's how we recorded the album. And the guy who recorded us, Chris, ended up joining the band because he completely fit. And when we were in studio, so I did the rhythm guitar, and then I added the leads on top of it. And I'm thinking like, oh shit, like I'm not gonna be able to play those two things at the same time. So he joined. He added some stuff. He added some like effects, and he even added some little things that then we went back to the album to add for like atmosphere and all that. So it differs a little bit, uh, but yeah, I think that the album is maybe not as aggressive as like the live show would be. Like the volume, and it's not that crazy, especially for an American audience. Like you guys don't have a sound limit in the US. We do in France and Belgium and Europe. But usually people notice this, and also because it's important to have the vibration and like to feel kind of like have like an oppressive sound. So we play a lot on that. We also play on the fact that the music has to kind of like speak for itself. So that's why I don't talk to the crowd. We have lights that we place behind us, so we constantly have like light, behind our back, so you can't really see us. So we try to create that thing that's like, not to the level of bands like Sun or what, where you have like all the smoke, like the crazy lights and all that, and where it's like super fucking loud. But like a smaller version of that, should I say?
Okay, cool. So I kind of want to talk about uh, the kind of the modern digital age and the mentality of a lot of folks. So, uh, do you feel that maybe right now it's kind of like a again, a dawning of underground music because of Bandcamp and SoundCloud and all that. It almost feels like the 80s or like late 90s when I was a kid, of tape trading and things like that. And there's so many bands out there. Like, it's great to have a label, but you don't really need one to get exposure today.
Hmm.
Do you feel like that it's watering the scene down, or do you think it's like a new rebirth? I'm kind of like, I always love to see like a band that just put a record out and like what their view is.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like it's good that you can get your stuff out regardless. That you can't just like, hide behind like excuses like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I don't have the money to go in the studio, or I can't like be noticed by labels or what. Like everybody, you can record basically anything you want on like this fairly simple setting. You don't have to spend a bunch of money. You don't have to have a label behind you, so that's good. On the other hand, it also means that I don't want to sound like judgmental or elitist or what, but you also have bands that the passion's not here,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of work, like you got to put a lot of work into like writing, practicing, and all that stuff. So it does feel like it waters it down a little bit. Bands that can like pop up and then they release one album and it's gonna and then they just like disappear and they start another one, and so I'm not a huge fan of that. But yeah, the exposure that bands can get through Bandcamp, worldwide is great. Um, so it goes hand in hand, and then like beyond the whole like exposure thing you were mentioning, the kind of like analog versus digital age. I think it's like I'm one of those like last generation 35. So
Yeah.
really, I was one of the last that were still kind of like a little bit into like tape trading. But late 90s, that was really the end of it. But, the MP3 was starting very soon, like early 2000. And even though I didn't know that for that long, I kind of miss it because there was really again, like it's this passion element, the fact that we could be like, hey, have you listened to like this album? No, well, like I'll bring you a tape or bring me one, and I'll bring I'll copy a CD for you, and you're like sitting next to your hi-fi system copying this CD for your buddy. And that was really cool, and also because I feel like it's stupid because I'm not that old, so I hate saying back then, but back then, you got that tape, and then you spent your I can't remember if it's the same in the US, but in France, we don't go to school on Wednesday afternoon, so you spend your Wednesday afternoon listening to it like over and over and over again,
There you go.
and that was
Yeah, no.
cool. Like you really dug into the album, like.
Yeah, it was a lot more personal back then, and I kind of feel like with Bandcamp that's starting to happen again, especially like you can connect with the band and kind of ask them questions and they respond back, and it's not so distant anymore. For a few years before that, it seemed like bands were very out of reach and it was a very different time, but now it feels like that all the bands that are coming up or that are staying in that digital age really want to communicate. I've had more communication in the last 2 years with bands than I did for 10 years before, and I think it's really because of this new technology that's happening. So it's very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Um,
Yeah.
no, I was just gonna say like the physical media is still great. We're obviously super thankful that Transcending Obscurity is doing the CD. We haven't gotten our CDs yet, but from the pictures I've seen, they look great, and like the box set is really cool too, and the idea was fantastic. But also like there is this like everybody want to do vinyl now,
Hmm.
and it's like it's not super necessary in the sense that like I think Ben, I think you should ask yourself the question like, does it really need a vinyl release? Is it like, or you just want to end up with like a big box of LPs for your ego, just so you know that your album has been like released on vinyl. So I'm not one to say like it has to happen. It's cool for sure, but I don't know. As long as the music's out there, people dig it, and I get some people that don't want to buy on Bandcamp. They're like,
Yeah.
it's against their idea of music. It's like, you shouldn't be like spending money on something that you can't hold. But I think that, yeah, again, the idea is like, you write something. I mean, you're a musician, you know what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
you write something, you want people to hear it, and then it doesn't really matter if it's on a CD, on a cassette, on a vinyl. I don't know.
No, I get it. I kind of go on a little bit on the other side too, where I just love the larger platform where I can sit down and look at the artwork, read the lyrics, kind of dig through too. So bands that I do really love, like I would rather have a vinyl version than a CD version, just because it's a bigger format. And I'm from that old world again, like you were talking about, where I like to sit down and listen to a record. I don't listen
Oh
to
yeah,
a
sure.
yeah, I don't listen to a song. Like I'm not that guy. Like, 3 minutes and done. That's not, I can't do that. Like, when I put your album on, it's from beginning to end. I'm not going to listen to one track and then just walk away. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. Like it's an emotional experience, especially with like, doom or more experimental music where you really want to just immerse yourself. So I can see both sides of it, but yeah, I think it would be very cool to have vinyl, especially for something like this, where it is a more special release. It's not designed for everybody. Even if you just limit it to a couple hundred records for the people that really want it, I think it's just it's always cool to have. So
For sure, for sure. I mean, I don't get me wrong. Like, I collect vinyl as well, because of my job. I work in with hi-fi
okay,
gear, so I work with turntables a bunch, but I also work with DACs and headphones and all this that kind of require me to test them with digital platforms. So I kind of changed my mind about that. Like, you would have asked me that question like 6 years ago, I would have been told just like, no, vinyl forever, and the rest is just shit. But no, I think I've talked with enough people and learned enough that I understand like both end of the spectrum.
yeah,
But it's just completely different way of like listening to things. Like, whether you're out walking, you're gonna have your phone in your pocket and your earbuds, and whether you want to like sit down and grab that record and um, look at the lyrics, look at the artwork. I mean, even CDs, like I stopped buying CDs for so long, and then I bought a car that doesn't have Bluetooth in it. It only has like a CD player and a radio, so I started buying CDs again.
there you go.
Um,
But that's cool. Yeah, and like I said, I go on both sides too. The digital, I mean, I love to be able to have it in all of it on my phone, and if I'm traveling somewhere, so I'm totally with you on that. Um, the next thing I kind of wanted to ask was, so this record's done. It's now that part of your life is over. You can at least take a deep breath and say, "Hey, the first one's out. Like this is great." Like um. So you were talking about some new music, and I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit as well. Is it very different from the Rotten Human Kingdom, or is it similar, just with more experimental elements? Uh, kind of talk to me like what's the mindset for the next phase of the band?
well, the writing process is very different, because unfortunately we're not able to do what we did
Mm,
for Rotten Human Kingdom, which was great because um, the drummer and I, we um, we got along real fast. Like, we started playing it, and there was just like, we enjoyed playing together, and there was like a chemistry that happened right away. So I could bring those riffs, and then he would like play the way, what he envisioned in his mind, and that would change things. And so it was this very organic thing. It was just the two of us. So now we can't really do that.
mhm.
So I'm writing a bunch. by myself, and I have a tendency to like overthink things. So it's taken me a while, and it's a little bit different also because after so we started this band 3 years ago. I've become a better musician. I've become more comfortable with my vocals. I started as a bass player, so guitar was fairly new to me.
Mhm.
And so I'm definitely writing stuff that is more complex, more interesting. And also the third member, Chris, is bringing his influences as well. And he's been around for a while. He has a good resume, and he can be a little blunt as well, which is great. I love it. I can sense stuff. I'm gonna be like, yeah, this riff, it's like it's just not working. It sounds too much like this, or straight up like this part's shit. Just get rid of it.
Gotcha.
So the environment's different. It's still Subterraen, but it's definitely it's more under control. I would say it feels more like um, less of an explosion in a certain way. Like to me, Rotten Human Kingdom was really kind of like this scream, just like everything was just like poured out, and that's the way we wrote it. That's the way we recorded it. It was just kind of like there was like really like anger, rage in it. It just like came out, and it felt kind of like out of control in the sense that yeah, that's the kind of energy that was in the room when we wrote that, when we recorded that, and now it's gonna feel more in control, a little more complex. So I'm super happy with the way things are turning out right now. And so we'll see because people have enjoyed kind of like the rawness of Rotten Human Kingdom. So maybe when the next thing comes out, people are gonna think that we don't like it anymore.
Oh, well, I hope that doesn't happen. But like I said, it's always good to have experimentations and new ideas. So that's a good thing. Um, I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about. I'm going to go back to the actual album, the Rotten Human Kingdom. I
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of ask about the artwork because I don't know how to say this, like, and it's not offensive, but like it's one of the most offensively non-offensive record covers I've seen in if you know what I mean. Like you look at it and the first time you look at it, you don't really realize what you're looking at, and then after that, you're like, "Oh shit, okay, I kind of get the vibe with the music." Uh, Talk about the artwork and how it ties in with the theme and the idea of the record.
I knew that I wanted something from Adam, sorry.
Yeah.
I love his work. There was like almost like nostalgic part where the person that did our logo is Justin Corey from Osnia.
Okay.
He was a friend of mine, and I was like, yeah, just keep it Portland. I'm just gonna try to bring as many things from Portland, from Pacific Northwest, and into this album. So Adam was like perfect choice, and so I've been going through his work for a while, and we're looking at like, oh, look, how about this painting? How about that painting? And then one day I just saw this one, and I know the artwork is not everybody like it. I think some people think that it doesn't really match the sound. I think it does because it was kind of like you have this image in your mind and then like you see it, someone painted it, and you're like, yeah, that's kind of like the kind of like end of the world kind of sky, like greenish, reddish, all that stuff, and then like the dead tree,
Yep.
and the animal and the female figure, the whole like Mother Earth, all that stuff ties in as well.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like someone read the lyrics and painted that, and same thing, the fact that you look at his work, most of his work is and I'm awful at like knowing the painting techniques and all that, but it looks more like a painting. Like this doesn't really look like a painting. It has kind of like the album, like a rawness to it.
Yeah.
It seems kind of just like, it could be made like better, or it could be perfected into this, amazing artwork that he can do. But it was just like, it feel like it was done like there was the impulsion of doing this, and then like moved on. No, like too much time spent on it.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like the album really was encapsulated in this artwork, so it was a no-brainer for us.
Cool. Well, and that's kind of what I feel is like, if I can just kind of throw some feedback about it, because it's a
Yeah.
really cool, it's really cool to me, and I feel like it does tie in. It's probably and again, I'm gonna just say it the way it is. It's probably the most beautiful ugly thing I've ever seen. Like, like, because when I first looked at it, I was like, oh wow, like it looks hopeful, and then as you dig deeper in, you can see all the ugliness inside of it, but yet you can see that like there's still hope and beauty throughout the entire art. So it kind of mixes both. Like, that's what this band reminds me of. It's like there's hopeful moments, there's desperate moments, there's painful moments, there's power. Like, it kind of mixes it all together. So yeah, the artwork kind of really does tie in. So very cool, man. Like, I'm
Thanks.
glad. I'm glad you could explain, that way, because that's kind of the way I saw it all along. So,
I mean, of course,
um,
you totally like got this right. Like there is, being like in the music, you have like sometimes the more like quieter parts and all this, and you can there's a little bit of like sadness and all this, but there is hope in the lyrics, or in the way I'm thinking about all that, because I don't think it would be as frustrated and upset about the whole situation if I didn't think that there was a way for us as a species to like correct what we've done. It's like we're capable of wonderful things. Human beings are capable of wonderful
yeah,
things. There are great things that exist in this world, but there are a lot of fucked up stuff that don't really make sense on a basic level. I'm not gonna get on my soapbox, but exploding people just for fucking money, or just like selfishness, or just the absolute craziness that's been going on for the past year. People fighting over the smallest thing on social media, and just like let's take a step back, and like just quit it with the childish shit.
yeah. No, I'm totally with you on it. Um, so I only got a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go for sure. But said, so I asked this question to every band, so I kind of want to see what your impression interpretation is. So if you could have any one artist, I don't care, living, dead, it doesn't matter, interpret your band's sound and maybe re-record or rework some of your songs, who would you want it to be and why?
Hmm. That's a good question. Well, I think that I would be curious. One of my favorite bands is Yob.
Okay.
I'd be curious to see what they could do with that. But it's kind of like they would make it better, and so it just make me sad. It's kind of like when Johnny Cash did those covers of
Yeah.
Nine Inch Nails and Depeche Mode, and it's like when Johnny Cash calls you, or his people call you to be like, hey, can Johnny Cash do like the cover of your song? You're like, yes, thank you, but you know that eventually people are going to think of those songs as like his original. So
Right.
let's just scratch this one. No, I think that I think it'd be interesting to see like a grindcore band. Like I think Napalm Death would be awesome,
Nice.
because the themes are so sorry, the cat is
No,
being a pain. Yes. Um, the themes are so similar, and I think the approach is similar, but the sound differs the way we approach the music. And instead, you have like long tracks, fairly slowish or super fast, energy fueled tracks. So yeah, like a grindcore band like Napalm Death, or
yeah, no, I definitely could hear that. Something even like agoraphobic nosebleed or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, like doing some crazy goddamn doom version of it. That'd be freaking cool. No, absolutely cool. So I kind of wanted to ask, because it seems like you write a lot of music from what you're talking about. Do you have other music that's not going to be for this project that you're working on, or things along those lines?
I used to have like a bunch of stuff, like little like tracks here and there, little bits that I used to do. Not anymore. Life is such now that I won't really want to focus on that. It's like when you're in your 20s and you don't really have much to worry about, like you can be in a bunch of bands and be like super active. Now, like Subterraen is really my baby. That's what I really want to focus on. Like I wanted to start a band where I would be just a vocalist. I wouldn't be like writing anything except maybe like some lyrics and let other people take care of the music. But then again, I'm thinking like, with like work and like just my personal life and all that, I don't think that I can be in a band and not be like 100% involved. That's just not my personality. So I think I just spend more time on the new stuff to make it as good as I possibly can.
Cool. That's awesome. So I'm going to leave the last couple minutes of this to you. Talk about what you want, hype the band up, whatever is going to be going on. I want my listeners, viewers, whatever, as I jokingly say, the hundreds of people that are going to watch this can kind of, learn a little bit more about the music, whatever you guys are up to. So it's your soapbox, as you said, right now for the next couple minutes.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your review as well.
Thanks.
I just hope people listen to the album and hopefully they'll enjoy it. As you said yourself when you did the Ilse review, and that really resonated with me. It's music that you look for. It's not something that you're gonna hear on the radio. It's something that you purposely kind of like go and listen to. And again, like it's like this the passion thing. Like you go and you dig it and you check and so I hope people are going to listen to it, enjoy it. I hope that we'll be able to get new stuff out as soon as possible. We started looking into doing those recorded live shows, and then we realized that it wouldn't really work for what we do
Sure.
live because you wouldn't have the volume, the vibrations that I was talking about. So we don't really know when we'll be able to get back on stage as soon as possible. But there will be more. There will be more music. I don't know when we'll be able to put it out as soon as possible. We're hoping to be heading back in studio as soon as this whole thing's over. As soon as we're done with material, and as soon as possible.
Nice. So I definitely will put links to everything so people can purchase it, check it out. I guess the last question I'll ask is, so are you sticking with Transcending Obscurity? Is that going to be the label to go for the future, or is it kind of up in the air and it was just a one record kind of thing?
The next album should be released on Transcending Obscurity Records.
Awesome. So if you ever do come to the US, please let me know. We'll hang out. I definitely will hang out. We'll have a drink and we'll talk about all the good and the bad of the world. Because again,
I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time so much, Clem. It's been an absolute pleasure. Clint from the doorway too, man. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye.